Welcome back, troops. Let's tab 59. It's brightening up nicely now. Hope everybody's well. Shouldn't have to be wearing a coat. We're in June, middle of June. What's happened to our summer over here in the UK? Nightmare. So anyway, what I want to talk to you about today, I'll talk to you about specialist training, and in particular, specialist training teams. We'll get on to what the teams are all about in a moment, but some of you may be aware of those specialist training teams. If you're UK military, ex-military, you may remember them back in the day. So, just for those of you who don't know, any civilians that may be watching or people that aren't au fait with the military, when you join the army, whatever trade or cap badge you're in, obviously you go through your basic training to become a soldier first. And then later on you go on to your special to arm training. But that's not the end of it. Obviously, as you go through your military career, you're constantly learning new skills, picking up new qualifications, because you have to advance your career. You want to get promoted. There's certain courses you have to do within your cap badge, your trade, that you need to do to promote. So in the army, you're constantly developing new skills and practicing the skills you've got by going on exercise, etc. So most courses, certainly big trade courses now, are normally done at the school. When I say school, I mean, for instance, if it's going to be a tactics course you go on in the infantry, you're going to go to the School of Infantry. If it's linked with artillery, you're going to go to the School of Artillery, and so it goes on. So there's all these different schools, if you like, relevant to your cap badge. There's some all-arms courses as well, so it doesn't matter what cap badge you are. But if it's linked to your cap badge will have some sort of centralised training establishment. Now, if you're a territorial soldier, now, just explain this for a moment. So in the UK, the part-time forces, armed forces, certainly the army, let's talk about the army. The part-time army was called the territorial army. And it had been for a bit, it lasted about 100 years. And a few years ago, they changed its name to the Army Reserve. And that's what we've got today. So we've got our regular army and our Army Reserve. But let's go back to when it was called the Territorial Army. So if you're a Territorial Army soldier, you had a commitment of doing a 2-week annual camp every year and plus X amount of weekends. But you could do courses on top of that. If your employer would let you go, and your unit had the budget for the manned training days to pay you, because obviously as a TA soldier or part-time soldier, you only got paid for the days that you attended work, courses, drill nights, exercises, whatever. So the budget had to be there. But it may be that you couldn't, through work commitments or whatever, you couldn't manage to do your annual camp. So you could do a course in lieu. Now, most regular courses are probably 4, 6, 8 weeks long. Well, obviously a territorial soldier can't necessarily do that because of money and time off work, etc. So most territorial army courses were condensed down to a 2-week period. Now, if you're a territorial soldier and you wanted to go on a course, you'd go to that school, say the School of Infantry or Larkhill, the School of Artillery, etc. And you would do a condensed down course which covered as much of the subject as the regular army would do, but it'd be condensed down, longer days, and it'd be pushed into that 2-week period for obvious reasons. And that was the thing. It was a strain on the regular army schools because, say, the School of Infantry at Brecon, they were running their program of regular army courses to do their tactics or whatever. And then they'd have to run a certain amount of courses for the territorial army. Couldn't run them at the same time or on the same course. It had to be a separate course. Same instructors, regular army instructors. So certain courses had to be done like that. But there were so many other courses, and the regular armies couldn't take the commitment on. Plus, the TA liked the idea of the TA training the TA. Now, basic training in the TA was conducted over weekends, initially for phase 1. And it was down to your individual battalion or regiment to do it. So one battalion might say, right, our recruits are going to do 5 weekends of phase 1 training, and then we'll send them off to do their 2-week basic training proper at a depot. Other units might say we only do 3 weekends and we'll send them off, or 6 weekends and send them off. So it was a bit disjointed. So we wanted to try and standardise stuff. Other courses that needed to be done were things like method of instruction, later became BITS, basic instructional techniques, and then DITS, defence instructional techniques. Battle casualty first aid, map reading courses, all these different courses that were run initially by the regular army. The TA wanted to take those over. So how did they do it? So I believe it was sometime in the early 1990s, they decided that around the United Kingdom, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and a few dotted areas, regions, if you like, southeast, southwest, Midlands, northeast, northwest, on. Each of those areas had brigades in them, or districts if it was London, for instance, and they would form these brigade and district specialist training teams. So I'll use 2 Brigade down in southeast of England, it was 2 Brigade specialist training team as an example. And all the teams were basically the same with a few variations, which I'm not sure about because I wasn't with them. I'd done a bit of time with 2 Brigade specialist training teams. So when they formed them, the teams were quite small in numbers. They were housed and looked after by that brigade, the regional brigade that they were attached to. So in 2 brigades, as an example, they were administrated and looked after, housed, clothed, everything else by headquarters 2 Brigade down in Shorncliffe. So they gave them, when they formed 2 Brigade Special Training Team, initially it was in an old camp in Crowborough, but later they gave them a dedicated building with some classrooms and offices and stores, etc. And that was in Risborough Barracks. The teams were made up of, well, commanding the team, if you like, was a lieutenant colonel. But he wasn't a commanding officer as such. His title was chief instructor. He was a lieutenant colonel. And all of the staff on these specialist training teams were territorial army soldiers, reserve soldiers, apart from one, who was the administration warrant officer. Everybody else was part-timers. So you had a chief instructor at the top. As I say, he had a permanent staff member, an admin warrant officer. And then you, depending on your team and what your team was delivering, now Land Command down in Wilton, they controlled them all. And they decided what core subjects those teams had to deliver. So you could add on, the chief instructor or the brigade commander maybe could add on other little courses of their own making, if you like, and I'll come on to that. But the core subjects were small arms training, things like range management, stages 1 to 3, the old SAT range, a small arms trainer, later dismounted close combat trainer. What else is there? Was the automatic marking system, target marking, what was it called? Automatic target system. There was map reading, basic instructional techniques, and all these courses that these specialist training teams ran, like those core subjects I just mentioned, there was more than that. AFV recognition, etc. All those courses will run over a number of weekends. For instance, if you was a territorial soldier and you wanted to do a range management, get your range management qualification, stages 1 to 3, you would go off with one of these specialist training teams and the course would be conducted over 3 weekends for the actual range management. You would do a further weekend to qualify as a SAT user, small arms trainer, and the automatic target marking system. So it's a total of 5 weekends to get your qualification as a range manager with the Territorial Army. So that was the idea. Now, as time went on, so to cover those courses, so we had at 2 Brigade, we had 3 wings. So you had the chief instructor with his admin warrant officer, and then you had 3 wings, and each wing was commanded or led, if you like, by a major. So we had a battle skills wing, we had a small arms training wing, and we had a specialist training wing. Specialist training wing done battle casualty courses, first aid, MBC assistant instructor course, as it was MBC then, CBRN now, basic instructional techniques. They've done all the specialist stuff. Obviously, small arms wing, done the range management, the SAT user course, automatic marking system course, and they also did things like GPMG in the SF role. I remember just before, when Bosnia first kicked off, we had some lads from the reserve art or the TA SAS come down, a few of them to go through sustained fire course, GPMG sustained fire. I think they've done a sharpshooter course, which is basically a sniper, the old sharpshooter course. We've made it ourselves with a small arms school core guy. And that was to bring potential snipers up before they went the sniper card up, or sniper course, to at least be au fait with the then L96, Accuracy International L96 sniper rifle. So they would just do all the shooting side, all the theory and the practical shooting up to the badge test. They wouldn't do all the fieldcraft side of it. So at least when they were on the sniper course, they had completed all, they were au fait with the sniper rifle, and they could hit headshots at Hunt's Head at 800 metres or whatever. Battle Skills Wing, well, they did the odd drill and duties carder, so a 2-week carder to bring people up for a junior NCO, like a carder course. They also used to run, for the brigade commander, a battle assessment exercise. So you'd have a weekend where a company from a TA battalion would come along and go on exercise, and those guys, our guys from the training team, would go along as DS, as directing staff, umpires if you like. And at the end of that, they would write an assessment on the command side of the exercise and how well it was run by the platoon commanders, company commander, right down to section commanders. So those are 3 wings we had. Now, I think it was the early 2000s they decided, hang on, let's try and make TA recruit training more all on the same song sheet. I'm trying to look for the word, but all on the same song sheet, more standardised. So rather than battalions doing 3 weekends for their recruit, another battalion doing 5 weekends, let's standardise it a bit before they go off to Catterick for the infantry and do their 2-week phase 2 cut training course, basic training. So that's what I did, and we started running that for all the TA battalion, all the battalions in our catchment area in South East Brigade. So all the way down from the M25 to South London, all the units there, caught all of those, quite a few units in that area, down to the Kent coast. We ran them initially at Crowborough, and later we moved to Purbright into D-lines. Some of you might remember D-lines. And they run the course there over, I think it started off about 6 weekends. It might have grown to about 7 or 8, I can't remember. So again, we then closed down our battle skills wing and formed a recruit training wing. Same detail, had an OC, a major, had a W2, sort of like a wing sergeant major. And then underneath that, you had all the instructors. Now, initially, these training teams, when they set up, the lowest rank you could be in the training team was a sergeant upwards. But when we went to recruit training, I think we took a few corporals in, full corporals. You had to have a few skills behind your belt, obviously, to do it. Some of you had to be range management trained, some of you had to be qualified in different subjects so that we could cover all the stuff they needed, the recruits needed for phase 1 training. So that was that. 2000, that's going quite well. And once we'd done it, it started to spread to the other training teams, specialist training teams around the country. And then in 2006, there was a merger, and 2 Brigade merged with 145 Home Counties Brigade, who were currently at the time in Malta Barracks in Aldershot, doing a similar sort of thing, but they didn't do the recruit training at that stage. So the 2 teams merged, a few changed, some left, some stayed. Team got bigger, and it was renamed 4 Div Regional Training Centre. So 4th Division Regional Training Centre rather than a specialist training team. It then split down into just 2 wings, a recruit training wing and a specialist training wing. Specialist training wing picked up all the other courses, range management, bits, dits, whatever you want to call it, first aid, battle casualty handling drills, all that sort of detail. They done that, and obviously the recruit training wing done their own thing, the recruit training. And that's how that run till about 2013, I think, or 2012, 2013. And that particular 4 Div Regional Training Centre, there's regional training centres around the country. 4 Div changed its title again and went inside Purbright proper into the ATR, as it was then, Army Training Regiment Purbright. And the TA element, if you like, the ATU, it became the Army Training Unit South East. That set up within ATR Purbright. And I think later become D Company of 2 ATR, 1 ATR, there's 2 down there. And that's how that happened. What's happening today, I couldn't tell you. But that was sort of the setup of the regional training centres. So many of you out there, if any of you, especially TA lads that are watching, you would probably have gone along to one of your specialist training teams and maybe done a course. You may have even been an instructor attached to them. It was like the only sort of e-posting you could get, external posting, as a TA soldier. You know, if you joined the 5th Battalion Foot and Mouth Unit and your drill hall was in, I don't know, Canterbury, that was you pretty much. You could probably move around the companies within your battalion and you could maybe even transfer to another TA battalion, but that was pretty much it. Having these specialist training teams, later regional training centres and then ATUs, at least it gave a TA soldier and officers somewhere else to try for. They could go away for a couple of 3 years maybe and work with these training teams, gain some more courses, gain some more experience, and then go back to their TA battalion or regiment, whatever, as a better soldier or officer. So that's just a little bit about specialist training teams. If any of you remember them or done your training through some of them or was an instructor at one of them, please give me a shout in the comments. I'd be interested to see if any of you are there. I remember London District Training Team fairly well. As I say, 145 Home Counties Brigade Specialist Training Team. I remember those guys, some instructors from that. Obviously I knew 2 Brigade Specialist Training Team very well because I worked there. Some of the others, not so au fait with, but let me know in the comments. Anyway, I've got to crack on. I haven't got all day. I've got work to do. I've got tabbing to do. Till next time, troops, and it won't be long. Stay safe. Remember, let's tab.